If you're stuck while writing a particular scene, your ultimate goal is to move forward with your writing. And a lot of people have trouble because they feel like they have to stay in that scene and get everything right in the moment, perfect the very first time through. And this is just not the case. So let me break down some really good advice that another author shared on one of my shows ages ago about advice she got from another author on moving her writing forward. So let me paint you a picture. I once talked to an aspiring author who had a scene inside of a restaurant or a cafe, and she could not get the characters out of the cafe. She could not get them forward, and so she had been in that same restaurant for 3 or 4 years, and her book never got written because she couldn't move it forward. She couldn't figure out what to do. Now, if she had used this advice, she would have been able to move forward with that. So your goal is to get the characters out of that scene. For most people, I highly recommend writing in chronological order because you're going to avoid a lot of plot holes that way, or at least a lot more plot holes that way, and you want to make sure that you are tracking what you're doing properly. Now, some people can write all over the place. I highly do not recommend this for 90% of writers out there. So you do want to write in chronological order, which means you got to get them to that next step. So what this author told the other author was, get them out by any means necessary. Think of the most ridiculous thing that you could ever think of to get them out of the restaurant. A giant elephant comes running down the road and they have to evacuate. It gets them out and it makes no sense at all, but you can come back later and fix it. Because as you're writing your story, you're going to get to know your characters more. You're going to get to understand your book and your scenes and the things that you're talking about in a much deeper way. So while right now you don't know how to move this story forward, you just need to get them out onto the street. You don't even need to get them to the next scene, just get them out onto the street. So write the most ridiculous thing that you can think of. Flying monkeys have cascaded down from the sky and we have to run out of the restaurant. Think of something that's absolutely nonsensical when it comes to your story. Write it in there, and I recommend you highlight it in red font so you can easily find it later. You're not dealing with the rest of it right now, you're just moving forward. Once you have them out on the street, once you have them down later, like a couple blocks away, now you have the ability to move your story forward, get back on track. Write the thing that you were trying to write in the first place. This gives you that little gap of, okay, we've moved forward, now we're in a different scene, you can now move forward with your story, and at the end of your story, when you completely understand your characters, your world building, the things that you're going to be doing inside of your stories, and the timeline that you're creating, you're going to be able to go back and very easily figure out that little scene. So you're just putting a placement in there, a little gap in your story, something that's going to be a placeholder for you that you can come back and fix later on, that moves you forward so you can continue writing the rest of the story. So if you have to get a couple of paragraphs of absolute nonsense just to move it forward, do that. So at that point, you want to make sure that you are moving forward with your story. Now, of course, we always go back to, if you're a new writer, you should be plotting your book. 99% of people should be plotting their book as a new writer for your first 3 or 4 books until you figure out your writing strategy. Not everybody has to, and not everybody can, but for the vast majority of you, you should be plotting it. And if you plot your story, all of a sudden you don't have those issues. You don't have that writer's block because you know exactly what you're writing. So we eliminate that problem entirely by plotting your story first and figuring out step by step what you're going to be doing in the story, and then all you have to do is write it. So when it comes to getting stuck in your story, just move them forward however you can. If you need to take a couple of minutes to figure it out, that's fine. If you need to take a day to figure out what you want to write, that's fine. But if it takes more than 2 or 3 days, use this strategy. Write whatever you can in there and then move forward with it so that you're not spending 3 years in the same restaurant and your book never getting written.